The ultimatum, the morning sun over New York City, disappeared without warning. One moment, millions of people were walking to work under clear blue skies. The next moment, darkness fell across Manhattan as something enormous blocked out the light. Emergency sirens began wailing across the city as people looked up in terror at the massive ships hovering overhead. President Elena Vasquez was reviewing economic reports in the Oval Office when her chief of staff burst through the door without knocking. The look of pure panic on his face told her everything she needed to know before he spoke a single word. "Madame President, we have a situation. Multiple alien vessels have appeared over major cities worldwide. They're huge, bigger than anything we've ever seen." Elena stood up slowly, her mind racing through the protocols they had secretly practiced for this exact scenario. After 20 years of preparation, the moment had finally arrived. She walked to the window, but Washington, D.C. looked normal. The aliens had chosen their targets carefully. "How many ships?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around her. 47 massive vessels, positioned over New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, and other major population centers. Each ship is approximately 3 kilometers long. Our satellites estimate they could each carry hundreds of thousands of troops. Elena nodded and pressed the emergency button on her desk. Within minutes, she was descending in a high-speed elevator toward the Global Defense Coalition Command Center, built secretly beneath the White House over the past 2 decades. The command center was a marvel of human engineering and alien technology combined. Banks of quantum computers processed data at impossible speeds. Holographic displays showed real-time images of the alien fleet. Military officers from every major nation worked side by side, speaking multiple languages, but united in their purpose. Admiral Cain Rodriguez, the commanding officer of humanity's most classified military project, approached the president with a grim expression. His weathered face showed the stress of 2 decades spent preparing for this day. "Madame President, the Vorthan Empire has made contact. They're demanding we surrender unconditionally within 48 hours. Elena looked at the main display screen, which showed the alien flagship hovering over Times Square. The ship was a dark metallic gray with strange blue lights pulsing along its hull. It looked like a massive sword hanging over the heart of humanity's greatest city. "What exactly are they demanding?" she asked Dr. Lisa Park, Earth's leading xenobiologist and the woman who had first decoded alien transmissions 20 years ago, stepped forward with a translated message. Her hands shook slightly as she read from her tablet. "They call themselves the Vorthan Empire. They've conquered over 800 worlds across the galaxy. They're offering humanity a choice: surrender completely and become a slave species, or face total extinction. They claim no species has ever successfully resisted them." Elena studied the faces around her. These were the best and brightest minds humanity had to offer. They had spent 2 decades preparing for this moment, ever since the first alien probe had been captured and reversed. "Admiral Rodriguez, what is the status of Project Crimson?" The Admiral's expression shifted from grim to determined. "All systems are operational, Madame President. We have been ready for deployment for the past 3 years. The Crimson Fleet consists of 1,200 vessels of various classes, all equipped with adaptive technology based on captured alien systems." Elena walked to the center of the command center, where a 3-dimensional hologram showed the positions of every alien ship around Earth. She had dreamed of this moment and feared it in equal measure. Humanity's greatest test was about to begin. The communication system crackled to life with an alien voice. The translation came through clearly, spoken in perfect English with a cold, mechanical tone. Humans of the planet you call Earth, I am Supreme Commander Thakma of the Vorthan Empire. Your primitive world has been selected for incorporation into our glorious dominion. We have studied your species for the past solar cycle. You are violent and chaotic, but you show potential as laborers and soldiers. Alina took the microphone, knowing her next words would determine the fate of every human being alive. Supreme Commander Thakma, I am Alina Vasquez, President of the United Earth Coalition. We have received your message and understand your offer. Excellent. Then you will begin immediate surrender procedures. Disable all military installations and await our landing forces. Alina looked around the command center one last time. Every officer, every scientist, every technician was watching her. She thought about her daughter studying at university, about her grandson taking his first steps, about every human being who deserved to live free. Commander Thakma, our answer is no. Silence filled the communication channel for several long moments. When the alien voice returned, it carried a tone of disbelief. Repeat your response, human leader. Our translators must have malfunctioned. Our answer is no. Humanity will not surrender. We will not kneel. We will not become your slaves. This time the silence lasted even longer. When Thakma spoke again, his voice was filled with cold fury. You fool! Do you not see our fleet above your cities? Each of our ships carries enough firepower to destroy your largest population centers. We could eliminate your entire species within hours. Admiral Rodriguez stepped beside Alina, speaking into the microphone with quiet confidence. Commander, we see your ships. We understand your capabilities. Our answer remains the same. Impossibile. No primitive species has ever refused our offer. After seeing our power, you must reconsider before we demonstrate why resistance is futile. Dr. Park leaned forward to speak. Commander Thakma, we have indeed considered your offer very carefully. We have studied your empire's history and methods. We know exactly what surrender would mean for our people. Alina continued. We choose to fight. We choose freedom over slavery. We choose death over submission. The alien commander's voice became a snarl. Then you choose extinction. We will give you 24 hours to reconsider. When that time expires, we will begin cleansing your world. Your cities will burn. Your oceans will boil. Your species will be erased from galactic history. The communication cut off, leaving the command center in tense silence. Alina looked around at her team, seeing determination rather than fear in their eyes. Admiral, begin deploying the Crimson Fleet. All stealth protocols are authorized. Want our ships in position before the Vorthon realize what's happening. Admiral Rodriguez smiled for the first time that day. It will be my pleasure, Madam President. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, massive doors that had been sealed for decades began to open. Similar doors opened beneath the Sahara Desert, under the ice of Antarctica, and on the hidden side of the moon. Humanity's greatest secret was about to be revealed. The Crimson Fleet had been built using a combination of human ingenuity and alien technology captured from crashed probes and defeated scout ships over the past 20 years. Each vessel was smaller than the massive Vorthan ships, but faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with weapons specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in alien shielding systems. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the CNS Defiance, one of the first ships to launch from the Colorado facility. She had trained for this moment her entire adult life, ever since joining the secret space program at age 18. All systems green, Captain, reported her tactical officer. Stealth field is operating at maximum efficiency. The Vorthon won't detect us until we want them to. Maria looked at the view screen showing the alien ships hanging over Earth like dark clouds. Each enemy vessel was 10 times the size of her ship, but she felt no fear. The Defiance and its crew were ready. Commander Jake Thompson piloted his fighter squadron from Lunar Base, hidden on the far side of the moon. His 24 ships were the fastest humanity had ever built, capable of accelerations that would kill an unprotected human pilot. But Jake and his pilots wore specially designed suits that allowed them to survive forces that would crush normal people. Crimson Squadron, this is Base Command. You are authorized for combat deployment. Show these aliens what human pilots can do. Jake smiled inside his helmet. Copy that, Base Command. Crimson Squadron is ready to dance. Across the solar system, 1,200 human ships moved into position. The Vorthon had expected to face a primitive species with crude weapons and no space-based defenses. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. President Vasquez returned to the surface, knowing she needed to address the world. Billions of people were watching the alien ships with terror, not knowing that humanity had been preparing for this day for 2 decades. She stood before the cameras, looking directly into the lens with unwavering confidence. My fellow humans, today we face the greatest challenge in our species' history. An alien empire has demanded our surrender and threatened our extinction. They believe we are primitive and weak. They believe we will kneel before their superior technology. They believe we have no choice but to submit to their will. She paused, letting her words sink in around the world. They are wrong about everything. For 20 years, we have been preparing for this day. We have built a fleet that rivals any force in the galaxy. We have trained soldiers who fear nothing and will fight for every human life. We have proven that when humanity is threatened, we do not surrender. We do not kneel. We fight. As if on cue, the first ships of the Crimson Fleet became visible in Earth's skies, their red hull markings gleaming as they emerged from stealth mode. The sight of human ships rising to meet the alien threat sent waves of hope around the world. Alina concluded her speech with words that would be remembered for generations. To the Vorthon Empire, we say this: you came here expecting to find sheep. Instead, you have found wolves. You wanted us to kneel. Instead, you will learn why that was the greatest mistake your empire has ever made. The 24-hour countdown had begun. Soon, the galaxy would discover what happened when humanity was pushed too far. The unleashing the countdown reached 0 at exactly 14 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. Supreme Commander Thakmar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Annihilator, watching the blue world below with cold satisfaction. In his 3 centuries of service to the Vorthon Empire, he had conquered 47 worlds. Not one species had ever refused their generous offer of slavery. Begin the demonstration, he commanded his weapons officer. Target the human city, called London. One precise strike to show them our power. Energy gathered in the massive ship's main cannon, a weapon capable of melting entire city blocks. The beam lanced downward toward Earth, bright enough to be seen from space. But the beam never reached its target. Instead, it struck an invisible barrier 3 kilometers above London and dispersed harmlessly into space. Thakmar stared in disbelief at the tactical display. What happened? Why did our weapon fail? His tactical officer, a veteran of 50 conquests, studied his instruments with confusion. "Sir, the humans appear to have some form of planetary shield. Generator, our sensors detect massive energy sources beneath their major population centers." Before Thakma could respond, his communications officer shouted a warning. "Supreme Commander, we have multiple contacts emerging from the planets. Surface, hundreds of ships approaching at high speed." The main view screen lit up with images that made Thakma's blood run cold. Sleek red ships were rising from hidden bases all over Earth, their hulls gleaming with energy fields he didn't recognize. More ships emerged from behind the moon, and even more dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. "Impossible," he whispered. "The humans are primitive. They barely have spaceflight capability." Captain Maria Santos smiled grimly as the CNS Defiance cleared Earth's atmosphere and accelerated toward the nearest Vorthan cruiser. Her ship's AI had been analyzing alien shield frequencies for the past hour, finding weaknesses that human weapons could exploit. "Target their port shield generator," she ordered her weapons officer. "Fire quantum torpedoes, full spread." The Defiance unleashed a barrage of weapons that struck the alien ship's shields like hammers hitting glass. The Vorthan shields flared and collapsed, leaving the massive vessel defensively vulnerable for the first time in centuries. "Impossible," Thakma roared as he watched his cruiser's shields fail. "Our shields are impenetrable." Admiral Rodriguez's voice came through every human communication channel, calm and confident. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. Engage at will. Show them what human ingenuity can accomplish." Commander Jake Thompson led his fighter squadron in a diving attack on the Vorthon flagship. The alien ship's point defense systems tried to track his fighters, but they were designed to target large, slow-moving vessels, not the lightning-fast human fighters. Crimson leader to all fighters, attack pattern Delta. Go for their weapon systems first, then their engines. Let's clip this birds. Wings. The human fighters swarmed over the massive alien ship like angry wasps, their precise laser fire targeting critical systems. Each fighter pilot had trained for years in virtual simulations based on captured alien technology. They knew exactly where to hit for maximum damage. Thakma watched in horror as his mighty flagship shuddered under the assault. Damage reports flooded in from every section. The humans were systematically destroying his ship's offensive capabilities. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Their technology is centuries behind ours." Dr. Lisa Park's voice came through the alien communication systems, speaking directly to Thakma. "Commander, you made a critical error in your intelligence gathering. You studied our civilian technology and assumed that represented our full capabilities." On Earth, Dr. Park continued her explanation from the Global Defense Command Center, knowing the alien commander could hear every word. "For 20 years, we've been capturing your scout ships and studying your technology. We've learned how your shields work, how your weapons function, how your ships are built. We've taken your technology and improved it with human creativity and determination." The battle raged across Earth's orbital space. Human ships, outnumbered 4-1, used tactics the aliens had never encountered. They struck fast and faded away, hit critical targets and vanished into stealth fields. Coordinated attacks that overwhelmed alien defenses through precision rather than brute force. Captain Santos watched as 3 of her ships surrounded a Vorthon cruiser. "Execute Wolfpack Maneuver Gamma. Take out their engines, then their weapons, then their shields. Leave the crew alive but helpless." The human ships attacked in perfect coordination, each targeting a different system on the alien vessel. Within minutes, the massive cruiser was drifting helplessly in space, its crew unharmed but completely unable to fight. Thakma realized with growing horror that his fleet was being systematically dismantled. The humans weren't trying to destroy his ships completely. They were disabling them, capturing them, turning the Vorthan Empire's own vessels against themselves. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with disbelief in his voice, "we're losing ships faster than our shields can recharge. The humans know exactly where to hit us for maximum effectiveness with minimum energy expenditure." Commander Thompson's fighter squadron had disabled the flagship's main weapons. He opened a channel to the alien bridge. "Supreme Commander Thakma, this is Commander Jake Thompson of the Earth Defense Forces. Your main guns are offline, your shields are failing, and your engines are damaged. I strongly suggest you consider surrender." "Surrender," Thakma snarled. "The Vorthan Empire does not surrender to primitives." "Then let me clarify something for you," Jake replied calmly. "We're not primitives, we're humans. And humans have a saying, don't start a fight unless you're prepared to finish it." The human fighters resumed their attack, targeting the flagship's shield generators with surgical precision. Each strike was calculated to cause maximum disruption with minimal collateral damage. The aliens were learning that humans fought to win, not to destroy for the sake of destruction. President Vasquez watched the battle from the command center, seeing the tactical display that showed human forces systematically defeating one of the galaxy's most feared military powers. But she knew the real victory wasn't in the battle itself. "Open a channel to the Vorthan fleet," she ordered. When the communication link was established, she spoke directly to every alien ship in the system. "This is President Elena Vasquez of Earth. Supreme Commander Thakma, your invasion fleet is defeated. Your ships are disabled or destroyed. Your crew members are being rescued and will be treated according to galactic humanitarian protocols." She paused, knowing her next words would be broadcast across the galaxy by Vorthon survivors. "But more importantly, Commander, you and your empire need to understand something about humanity. We are not a species that kneels. We are not a species that surrenders. We are not a species that accepts slavery as an alternative to death." Admiral Rodriguez added his voice to the broadcast. "Every species you have conquered in the past chose submission because they believed survival was more important than freedom. Humans believe freedom is more important than survival." Captain Santos, her ship, now positioned directly above the crippled Vorthan flagship, continued the message. "We spent 20 years preparing for this day, not because we wanted war, but because we understood that some things are worth fighting for. Our children's future is worth fighting for. Our right to determine our own destiny is worth fighting for." Commander Thompson, leading the recovery operations for disabled alien ships, added his perspective. "We're not going to execute your crews or enslave your people. We're going to repair your ships and send you home with a message for your empire." Dr. Park concluded the transmission with words that would echo across the galaxy. "Tell every species in the Vorthan Empire that they have a choice. They don't have to remain slaves forever. Humanity has proven that resistance is possible. Humanity has proven that freedom can be defended. Humanity has proven that no empire, no matter how powerful, is invincible when it faces people who refuse to kneel." The battle was over within 6 hours. Of the 47 Vorthan ships that had arrived to conquer Earth, 31 were captured intact, 12 were disabled but repairable, and only 4 were completely destroyed when their crews chose to fight to the death rather than surrender. More importantly, over 90% of the alien crews survived. They would return to the Vorthan Empire with first-hand accounts of humanity's capabilities and, more importantly, humanity's values. Thakma found himself a prisoner aboard his own flagship, now under human control. Captain Santos personally escorted him to what had been his ready room, where he would await transport back to Vorthon space. "I don't understand," he said, his voice filled with confusion rather than anger. "You have defeated us completely. Why are you not executing us? Why are you not enslaving us as we would have done to you?" Captain Santos looked at the alien commander with something approaching pity. "Because that's not who we are. We fight when we have to, but we don't become monsters to defeat monsters. We're sending you home because we want your people to know that there's another way to live." She turned toward the door, then paused. "Supreme Commander, when you return to your empire, I want you to deliver a message. Tell them that Earth stands ready to defend any species that chooses freedom over slavery. Tell them that humanity will never kneel, and will help others learn to stand." 3 days later, the repaired Vorthan ships departed Earth's solar system, carrying their crews home to spread word of humanity's victory. But they carried something more important than news of a military defeat. They carried proof that the Vorthan Empire was not invincible, that resistance was possible, and that somewhere in the galaxy, a species had chosen death over slavery and won. President Vasquez addressed the world one final time from the steps of the White House. With the captured alien ships visible in the sky behind her, today humanity passed its greatest test. We proved that courage, preparation, and determination can triumph over seemingly impossible odds. We proved that freedom is worth any price. We proved that humans will never, ever kneel. She looked up at the stars, knowing that across the galaxy, enslaved species were hearing about Earth's victory and beginning to dream of their own freedom. To every being in the galaxy who dreams of freedom, who yearns to stand tall, who refuses to accept that slavery is their destiny, we say this: you are not alone. Earth stands with you. Humanity stands with you. And together, we will ensure that no species ever has to choose between slavery and extinction again. The speech was picked up by alien communication networks and broadcast across hundreds of worlds. Within months, the first rebellion began in the Vorthan Empire. Within years, the empire itself would fall, not to superior military force, but to the simple idea that freedom was worth fighting for. And it all began because humanity refused to kneel. The siege of Kepler Station, the mining station Kepler 7, drifted in the asteroid belt like a wounded animal, its hull peppered with scorch marks and twisted metal. For 6 weeks, the station had endured the Valdari Empire's relentless siege, and everyone aboard knew they were living on borrowed time. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the command center's main viewport, watching the enemy fleet maintain its perfect formation. 37 Valdari warships hung in space like predators circling dying prey. Their crystalline hulls reflected the distant starlight, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. The Valdari had given them an ultimatum 3 days ago: surrender the station's rare mineral deposits or face complete annihilation. Sarah had refused. Now, with supplies running low and half her defensive systems offline, she wondered if Pride had signed their death warrant. The station housed 8,000 souls, miners, engineers, families who had come seeking fortune. In the asteroid belts, rich deposits of trilithium crystals. The Valdari wanted those crystals to fuel their expansion across the sector, and they didn't care how many humans died in the process. Earth's colonial defense fleet was stretched thin. Across a dozen systems, fighting brushfire wars against multiple aggressive species. No reinforcements were coming. Everyone knew it, though no one dared say it aloud. Lieutenant James Park approached Sarah with a datapad, his face gaunt from weeks of rationed meals. The young officer had aged years in the past month, his once bright eyes now dulled by exhaustion and loss. "Commander, we've lost another water recycler. At current consumption rates, we have maybe 10 days of drinking water left." His voice carried the weight of their situation. Every system failure brought them closer to the inevitable dot. Sarah took the report without looking at it. The numbers didn't matter anymore. Whether they died from thirst, starvation, or Valdari plasma weapons, the result would be the same. "Double the rationing," she ordered quietly. "And James, don't tell the civilians about the recycler. Let them hold on to hope a little longer." The command center hummed with desperate activity. Engineers worked around the clock to keep their failing systems operational. Medical teams treated the wounded from the last bombardment with dwindling supplies. Communication officers sent out distress calls that disappeared into the void, unanswered. The station's defensive grid, once capable of repelling pirate raids, had been reduced to a handful of point defense turrets that wouldn't last 5 minutes against a concentrated assault. Dr. Alina Vasquez entered the command center, her medical coat stained with blood that wouldn't wash out. "Sarah, we need to talk about the children." Her voice cracked slightly. The station housed nearly 500 children, and their parents were growing increasingly desperate. Some of the families are asking if we should consider the Valderis terms. They think slavery might be better than death. Sarah's jaw tightened. She understood their fear, but she also knew the Valderi's reputation. They didn't take slaves, they took test subjects. Their biological experiments on conquered species were legendary for their cruelty. "The answer is still no, Alina. We die free or we find another way." A proximity alarm suddenly screamed through the command center. Sarah's heart sank as she saw movement in the enemy fleet. The Valdari ships were adjusting formation, their weapons systems coming online. This was it. They had grown tired of waiting. She turned to her crew, seeing her own resignation reflected in their faces. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." The station shuddered as everyone moved to their positions. Parents hugged their children. Lovers exchanged final words. Soldiers checked weapons they knew wouldn't make a difference. Sarah stood straight, refusing to let her fear show. If humanity's last stand at Kepler 7 was to be recorded by history, she would ensure they faced it with dignity. Then something impossible happened. The station's long-range sensors, one of the few systems still functioning properly, detected an anomaly at the edge of the system. A massive energy signature was approaching at speeds that shouldn't be possible. The signature was unlike anything in their database. Not Valdari, not any known alien configuration. As it drew closer, the computer finally found a match in its archives. It was human, but the configuration was classified at levels Sarah didn't even have clearance for. "Commander, you need to see this," Park called out, his voice filled with something Sarah hadn't heard in weeks' wonder. On the main display, a ship emerged from the darkness between stars. It was enormous, easily dwarfing the largest Valdari cruiser. Its hull was matte black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, making it nearly invisible against the void. Only its running lights and engine glow gave away its position. Along its sides, Sarah could make out weapon systems that looked more like installations than ship-mounted armaments. The The communication system crackled to life with a transmission so powerful it overrode every frequency. A deep voice, calm and assured, filled the command center. Kepler-7, this is Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the UES Phoenix Rising. I apologize for the delay. Traffic was murder getting here. There was a pause, then the voice hardened. Valdari, Fleet, you are in violation of human territorial space. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal or face immediate termination. This is your only warning. Sarah's legs nearly gave out. The Phoenix Rising was a myth, a legend whispered in military academies. It was supposedly humanity's first true warship, built in secret using technologies reverse-engineered from a dozen conquered adversaries. Black-budget projects, experimental weapons, armor that could withstand direct hits from antimatter warheads. No one believed it actually existed. The Valdari fleet's response was predictable. They turned their weapons toward the new arrival, their commanders' chittering laughter echoing across all channels. One ship against 37. Humans truly are delusional. All vessels, destroy this arrogant newcomer. Space erupted in violence. The Valdari fleet fired as one, hundreds of plasma beams and missile volleys racing toward the Phoenix Rising. Sarah watched in awe as the human warship's point defense systems activated. Laser grids appeared around the ship like a spider's web of light, vaporizing missiles before they could impact. The plasma beams struck the ship's armor and simply dispersed, absorbed by some kind of energy field that made their shields look like tissue paper. Then the Phoenix Rising returned fire. Magnetic accelerator cannons along its hull spoke in sequence, launching projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The first Valdari cruiser simply ceased to exist, transformed into an expanding cloud of superheated gas. The second tried to evade but found itself caught by weapons that seemed to predict its movement. Within 60 seconds, 5 enemy ships were gone, and the Phoenix Rising hadn't even deployed its main armament. Captain Rodriguez's voice returned, still maddeningly, calm. Kepler-7. Be advised, we're about to get loud. You might want to reinforce your radiation shielding. Sarah barely had time to relay the order before the Phoenix Rising's bow split open, revealing a weapon that made her blood run cold. It was a directed energy weapon of some kind, but the power readings were off the charts. The weapon fired a beam of coherent energy so bright it temporarily overloaded the station's visual sensors, lanced through space. It carved through 3 Valdari ships in a line, their shields offering no more resistance than air. The beam continued past them, and Sarah watched in horror and fascination as it struck an asteroid 5,000 kilometers beyond, vaporizing it instantly. The Valdari fleet, for the first time in recorded history, broke formation in panic. Their disciplined attack dissolved into chaos as ships fled in every direction. But the Phoenix Rising wasn't finished. Drone fighters launched from its hangar bays, hundreds of them, each one equipped with weapons that could cripple a corvette. They swarmed through space like angry hornets, pursuing fleeing enemies with relentless efficiency. Lieutenant Park was crying. Sarah realized she was too. Around the command center, her crew watched in stunned silence as the tide of battle reversed. In minutes, the Valdari, who had tormented them for weeks, were being systematically destroyed by a single human ship. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was an execution. Kepler-7, this is Phoenix Rising, actual, Captain Rodriguez transmitted. We're reading critical system failures across your station. Prepare to receive emergency supplies and medical teams. And Commander Chen, well done holding the line. Earth remembers its own. Sarah finally found her voice. Captain Rodriguez, we thought no one was coming. Someone is always coming, Commander. It just takes us time to arrive. Phoenix rising out, as escape pods from destroyed Valdari ships scattered into the void, and the surviving enemy vessels jumped to hyperspace in full retreat. Sarah allowed herself to collapse into her command chair. They had survived. Against all odds, against all logic, humanity had come for them. The Phoenix Rising moved closer to the station, its massive bulk blotting out the stars, and Sarah had never seen anything more beautiful. Humanity's defiant stand, the aftermath of the Phoenix Rising's arrival transformed Kepler-7 from a tomb in waiting to a hive of renewed activity. Supply shuttles streamed from the warship's hangar bays, bringing medical supplies, food, water, and most importantly, hope. Captain Marcus Rodriguez himself came aboard the station, and Sarah finally met the man who had saved 8,000 lives. Rodriguez was not what she expected. Rather than the grizzled warrior she had imagined, he was a soft-spoken man in his 40s with kind eyes and prematurely grey hair. He walked through the station's corridors, personally checking on the wounded, speaking with families, his presence alone seeming to lift the oppressive atmosphere that had settled over Kepler-7. The Phoenix Rising isn't just a warship, he explained to Sarah as they toured the damaged sections. It's a statement. For too long, humanity has been seen as weak, divided, easy prey for empires like the Valdari. We've been reactive, defensive, always scrambling to protect what's ours. The Phoenix program changes that. We're done being victims. Sarah watched repair crews from the Phoenix Rising work alongside her exhausted engineers. They brought technologies she had only read about in theoretical papers, nano repair systems that could seal hull breaches in minutes, quantum processors that could restore their entire computer network, medical equipment that could save lives her doctors had already written off. How long has this ship existed? She asked. 3 years in active service, Rodriguez replied. We've been handling situations the public never hears about. Genocide attempts, slavery rings, resource theft on massive scales. The galaxy is more dangerous than Earth's government wants civilians to know. But that's changing. The Phoenix Rising is just the first. There are 4 more under construction. A communication officer rushed up to them, his face pale. Captain, Commander, we're detecting a massive hyperspace signature. It's huge. They rushed to the command center, where the main display showed something that made Sarah's heart skip. It wasn't just one signature, it was dozens. An entire fleet was dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. The Valdari Empire's second Armada, Rodriguez said grimly. They don't take kindly to losing. On the screen, over 100 Valdari ships materialized, including dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the Phoenix Rising. They've come to make an example of us all. Sarah felt the familiar weight of despair settling in, but Rodriguez seemed unconcerned. He activated his personal communicator. Phoenix Rising, execute contingency 7. It's time to show them why humans survived when so many other species didn't. The Phoenix Rising began to change. Its hull plating shifted, revealing additional weapon systems that had been hidden. Energy readings spiked to levels that made the station's sensors scream warnings. But more importantly, it began transmitting something, a signal that penetrated every system, every frequency, reaching into deep space. What are you doing? Sarah asked. Rodriguez smiled, calling in a debt. You see, Commander, humans have a reputation in this galaxy. We're stubborn, we're creative, and we're dangerous when cornered. But what really sets us apart is that we remember our friends, and we've made quite a few friends over the years. The Valdari fleet advanced in perfect formation, their weapons charging. Their admiral's message boomed across all channels, its translation dripping with contempt. Humans, you have destroyed vessels of the Empire. The penalty is the complete extinction of your species in this sector. Your one ship, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against the might of the second Armada. Rodriguez took the communication console. His response was measured, almost conversational. Admiral Zexita, I presume. I've read your file. 17 genocides, 43 enslaved worlds. Quite the resume. But you've made one critical error. In your calculations, you assume we're alone. New hyperspace signatures appeared on the sensors. Sarah gasped as ships began emerging throughout the system. But these weren't human vessels. A massive Turellian dreadnought dropped out of hyperspace, its captain transmitting on an open channel. The Turellian Republic remembers when humans stood with us against the Void Hunters. We stand with them now. More ships arrived, and peacekeepers, their vessels gleaming silver and gold. Humanity shared their medical technology freely during the spore plague. We have not forgotten. A wing of crystalline fighters, beings of living mineral who rarely involved themselves in organic conflicts. Humans taught us the concept of friendship. We come to honor it. Within minutes, ships from 24 species had arrived. Some were military vessels, others were converted cargo haulers with weapons hastily mounted. Some were massive, others tiny, but they all formed up around the Phoenix Rising and Kepler-7, a defensive line against the Valdari Armada. The Valdari Admiral's composure finally cracked. This is impossible. These species have no alliance with Earth. Rodriguez's voice carried across the void. You're right. There's no formal alliance, no treaty, no political agreement. This is something your empire could never understand. These people are here because they choose to be. Because sometime, somewhere, a human helped them when no one else would. We call it friendship. You're about to learn why that's more powerful than any empire. The battle that followed would be remembered in history books across the galaxy. The Valdari Second Armada, faced with unexpected opposition, attempted their traditional strategy of overwhelming firepower. They focused their attack on the Phoenix Rising, believing that destroying the human warship would break the ad hoc alliance's resolve. They were wrong. The assembled fleet fought with a coordination born not of training but of purpose. Turellian dreadnoughts absorbed massive damage to protect smaller ships. Andromedan peacekeepers used their advanced medical frigates to evacuate wounded from damaged vessels, regardless of species. The crystalline fighters, immune to certain energy weapons, placed themselves between the Valdari and more vulnerable organic ships. The Phoenix Rising lived up to its mythical namesake. Even when Valdari dreadnoughts concentrated their fire, the ship seemed to absorb the damage and strike back harder. Its experimental weapons carved through enemy formations, while its defensive systems protected not just itself, but extended coverage to Allied ships. Rodriguez commanded the battle with a calm precision that inspired those around him. Turning chaos into coordinated resistance, Sarah watched from Kepler-7's command center, her own defensive guns adding their small contribution to the battle. But she noticed something else happening. Throughout the station, civilians were organizing. Miners who had cowered for weeks were now volunteering to help with repairs. Families were sharing their hoarded supplies with newcomers from the Phoenix Rising. Children were drawing pictures for the soldiers, messages of hope and thanks. Commander Dr. Vasquez appeared beside her, tears streaming down her face. The medical teams from the Phoenix Rising, they've saved 43 critical patients. We thought we'd lost. They're sharing technology that's decades ahead of what we have. They're not just saving us, they're elevating us. The tide of battle turned when the Phoenix Rising unveiled its ultimate weapon. Not a gun or a bomb, but a transmission, a hack that penetrated the Valdari fleet's central command network. Rodriguez had been stalling, letting his cyber warfare specialists work. When they succeeded, every Valdari ship suddenly lost coordination. Their perfectly synchronized fleet dissolved into confusion as individual captains found themselves isolated, unable to communicate. The Allied fleet pressed their advantage. Ships that had been on the defensive surged forward. The Valdari, so dependent on their rigid command structure, couldn't adapt to the chaos. One by one, their ships began to retreat, then flee. Admirals Exeter, Dreadnought, isolated and surrounded, finally sent a signal of surrender. Rodriguez's response was broadcast across the system. Admiral, you will collect your survivors and leave human space. You will carry this message to your empire. Humanity is no longer alone. We stand with those who stand with us. And if you return, you won't face one ship or one species. You'll face a galaxy that has learned to stand together. As the defeated Valdari fleet limped away, the Allied ships began to disperse. Each captain transmitted messages of solidarity before departing. The Tyrellian commander's words resonated. Today, humanity has shown the galaxy what we could be if we chose unity over division. This will not be forgotten. Captain Rodriguez returned to Kepler-7 one last time before the Phoenix Rising departed. He found Sarah in the observation deck, watching the stars. "We'll leave a defense squadron here," he said. "The station will be rebuilt, stronger than before. Earth is establishing this as a forward operations base. You've held the hardest ground, Commander. Now it's time to build something better on it." Sarah turned to him, still processing everything that had happened. "Captain, why did all those species really come? One ship's distress signal couldn't have brought that response." Rodriguez smiled. 50 years ago, a human colony ship found a Tyrellian vessel drifting in deep space, its crew dying from radiation poisoning. We could have claimed salvage rights. Instead, we saved them. 30 years ago, human scientists spent 3 years developing a cure for a disease ravaging Andromedan worlds, asking nothing in return. 20 years ago, a human child on a space station shared her last meal with a starving crystalline youth, not knowing it would grow up to be a fleet commander. Every act of kindness, every moment of compassion, every time we chose to help instead of harm, it all matters. The galaxy remembers, Commander, and when we called, it answered. As the Phoenix Rising departed, its black hole disappearing into the void, Sarah stood among her people. The station was scarred but not broken. Its inhabitants were traumatized, but not defeated. They had stared into the abyss and survived because humanity had refused to abandon them. But more than that, they had witnessed something remarkable, a glimpse of what the galaxy could become when species chose solidarity over conquest. The children on Kepler-7 would grow up with a different understanding of humanity's place in the universe, not as victims or conquerors, but as builders of bridges, makers of friends, and defenders of those who couldn't defend themselves. The Phoenix Rising had brought more than salvation. It had brought a new paradigm, Sarah returned to her duties, but now with renewed purpose. Kepler-7 would be rebuilt, not just as a mining station, but as a symbol. A place where humanity had made its stand and where the galaxy had stood with them. The Valdari Empire would think twice before threatening human space again, not because they feared one ship, but because they now understood that attacking humanity meant facing the combined resolve of everyone humanity had ever helped. The war was far from over, but the battle for Kepler-7 had proven something fundamental. In a galaxy full of empires built on fear and dominance, the most powerful force might just be the simple act of showing up for each other when it mattered most. The Phoenix Rising had emerged from the darkness, but it had illuminated something far more important, that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or technology, but its ability to inspire others to stand together against the dark.